Welcome to another episode of Pathways to Our Past, or PP for short. Isn't that right, Travis? Oh, Travis isn't here again. He is actually in Mexico. Today we're at the site of what used to be Fort Winnebago, and if you remember last episode, I had mentioned Fort Winnebago because Chief Yellow Thunder had been captured and incarcerated there a few times. And so this is the site of where the fort was built. It was constructed in 1828 as an effort to maintain peace in the aftermath of the Winnebago War. And it was an army fort built on a hill overlooking the eastern end of the Portage between the Fox and Wisconsin rivers. And because the military men stationed here weren't involved in any active combat while they were here, they primarily spent their time building an old military road that spanned the distance between the three forts. So 116 miles in one direction to Fort Howard and 115 miles in another direction to Fort Crawford. And these three forts essentially connected the waterways of the Fox, Wisconsin rivers to the Great Lakes and the Mississippi. Fort Howard is in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and Fort Crawford is in Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. This fort was also assisted in the relocation of the Ho-Chunk Nation from Wisconsin to Minnesota, which included the building of an Indian Agency house, which is just across the Fox River over there on the old agency road. And the old Indian Agency house that is still standing there is the only known Indian Agency house that is still in its original location. That was constructed in 1832 as the residence and office of the liaison between the U.S. government and the Ho-Chunk Nation. Back then, the Ho-Chunk Nation was also known as the Winnebago tribe, so that's where the Winnebago name came from. This fort eventually was abandoned in 1845 because, like I said, it served no real combat purpose. And it was shortly thereafter, well, not shortly, but about a decade thereafter, sold to some private landowners. And at some point in 1856, the fort ended up burning down in a fire. The surgeons and officers' quarters are still intact. Those are these buildings across the highway from us. They are not open this time of year. And then after the fort was sold to private land ownership, something called the Garrison School was built on this property, and that's that white building over there. But we can't view those today, so we'll have to make a return trip some other time. There were a few notable residents that were stationed here. The one that probably stands out to you the most, looking at this plaque, would be, at the time, Lieutenant Jefferson Davis, who was stationed here from 1829 to 1831. About 35 years later, he would become the U.S. Secretary of War. And he was a senator from Mississippi. And about 30 years from when he stopped being stationed here, he became the first and only president of the Confederacy. So this is the property that the fort was built on. We have one of our famous Wisconsin historical markers here, the big brown sign. And now this is just a grassy lot where the fort used to stand, a big grassy field right next to the Fox River. So I've walked down to the kayak dock on the Fox River to do everybody's favorite segment, the premium beer review. And today we have Michelob Ultra Pure Gold, Superior Light Beer, Organic Light Lager. So those are our superlatives, Superior Light Beer. I have not personally had this beer myself, so this will be an interesting new taste sensation. It is pretty clean and crisp, not very flavorful, light and smooth. I don't know that this is something I would drink consistently because it's almost like drinking water, but it is something I could see consuming a lot of if you're on a diet, because there's only 2.5 carbs and 85 calories in it. As for the 6-pack review, I will give the site of Fort Winnebago a tentative 4 out of 6 in the 6-pack. I will have to come back and actually visit the agency house and the surgeon's quarters when it's open to confirm or potentially raise that rating. But it's a nice, cozy, peaceful little spot by the river. As for the beer, I will give it a 2 out of the 6 Michelob Golden Ultras out of the Ultra Pure Golds out of the 6-pack. That's it for this episode of Pathways to Our Past. Thank you for listening and watching, and we will catch you next time.